On a quiet day in Kentucky, what was supposed to be a routine medical milestone for one sister quickly turned into an emotional breaking point for another. Cameras were rolling. Family members were watching. Diners at a local restaurant had no idea they were about to witness a deeply personal unraveling. On one side of the story, 1,000 pounds. Sisters star Amy Slayton was preparing for something many Americans take for granted, a medical procedure to improve her vision and, potentially, her quality of life. After years of health battles, weight loss surgery, pregnancies, and emotional turbulence, this was meant to be a step forward. But miles away, and emotionally worlds apart, her sister, Tammy Slayton, found herself spiraling inside a restaurant, overwhelmed, frustrated, and visibly melting down in front of cameras and strangers alike. Was it stress? Was it deeper, unresolved tension? Or was this a snapshot of the complicated reality that has made this show one of the most talked-about series on TLC? Tonight, we take you inside what really happened, the surgery, the confrontation, the family dynamics, and what this moment could mean for the future of the Slayton sisters. Stay with us, because this is about far more than eye surgery and a restaurant outburst. This is about change, control, identity, and what happens when one sister moves forward and the other feels left behind. Background and context. To understand why this moment resonated so deeply with viewers across America, we need to step back and examine the journey that brought Amy and Tammy to this point. 1,000 pounds. Sisters premiered in January 2020 and quickly became one of TLC's most compelling and emotionally raw reality franchises. Set primarily in rural Kentucky, the show follows sisters Amy and Tammy Slayton as they navigate extreme obesity, health risks, relationships, and family life, all under the microscope of national television. At the start of the series, the combined weight of the sisters exceeded 1,000 pounds, a statistic that became part of the show's title and cultural identity. But what kept viewers watching wasn't just the number. It was the vulnerability. Amy Slayton often appeared as the more determined of the two early on, pushing toward bariatric surgery and eventually qualifying for weight loss procedures. She achieved a major milestone when she underwent gastric bypass surgery, later becoming pregnant and welcoming 2 sons, a development that dramatically shifted her life priorities. Tammy Slayton's journey, however, was more turbulent. After facing repeated setbacks in qualifying for weight loss surgery due to medical and behavioral challenges, Tammy eventually experienced a turning point when she entered a rehabilitation facility focused on food addiction and weight management. Reports confirmed she ultimately underwent bariatric surgery after losing a significant amount of weight under medical supervision. The sisters' relationship has always been layered with humor, sarcasm, dependency, and tension. They rely on each other deeply, but they also trigger each other deeply. Over multiple seasons, viewers have watched arguments escalate over diet choices, caregiving responsibilities, romantic relationships, and emotional support. The dynamic often centers around a painful but relatable question: what happens when one sibling grows and the other struggles? By the time this latest episode unfolded, both sisters were in transitional phases of life. Amy, now a mother navigating divorce and personal stress, was facing a different type of health issue, vision impairment that required medical intervention. Tammy, post-surgery and adjusting to rapid physical change, was learning how to exist in a world that suddenly treated her differently, physically and socially. That context matters, because what unfolded wasn't random. It was layered with history-breaking details. Let's begin with Amy. According to the episode as aired on TLC, Amy Slayton underwent eye surgery to address a long-standing vision issue. While the show did not frame the procedure as life-threatening, it was presented as significant enough to require preparation, recovery time, and emotional support from family. For Amy, who has been open about her health anxieties, even a relatively common medical procedure can carry heightened emotional weight. Viewers saw her preparing, discussing her concerns, and leaning on family members for reassurance. The moment felt grounded, not dramatic for the sake of television, but reflective of a mother who wants to remain healthy and present for her children. Sources within the show framed the surgery as a positive step, one that could improve her daily functioning and independence. But while Amy was moving forward medically, Tammy's storyline took a different turn. In a separate sequence, cameras followed Tammy during an outing to a restaurant. What appeared initially to be a normal social excursion began to shift in tone. Observers noted visible signs of frustration. Dialogue grew tense. At one point, Tammy appeared overwhelmed, raising her voice and expressing agitation. The meltdown, as portrayed in the episode, did not involve physical violence or public altercations with strangers. However, it was emotionally charged. The tension stemmed from feelings of discomfort, possible miscommunication, and internal frustration. The exact trigger, according to the show's edit, appeared to revolve around decision-making and perceived judgment. Whether related to food choices, social pressure, or personal boundaries, the emotional spike was evident. It's important to clarify, reality television is edited for narrative flow. What viewers see is a curated sequence of real events, not necessarily the full context of an entire evening. However, the emotional authenticity was difficult to ignore. Tammy has spoken in past episodes about struggling with anxiety, self-image, and the pressure of being filmed in public spaces. For someone whose life has been publicly scrutinized for years, a restaurant, a setting centered on food, can be psychologically complex. The episode juxtaposed Amy's medical progress with Tammy's emotional volatility, creating a powerful narrative contrast. One sister gaining clarity, the other losing composure. Expert analysis. When moments like this air on national television, they resonate beyond entertainment. They raise questions about mental health, public pressure, and family dynamics. From a psychological standpoint, experts often note that major physical transformation, such as significant weight loss, can trigger identity instability. According to clinical research, rapid body changes sometimes unearth underlying emotional patterns that were previously masked by coping mechanisms. In Tammy's case, transitioning from being medically immobile to increasingly independent is not simply a physical adjustment. It is an existential one. Who are you when the identity that defined your struggles begins to shift? Meanwhile, Amy's eye surgery represents a quieter but equally meaningful evolution. Vision correction can symbolize autonomy, the ability to literally and metaphorically see one's path more clearly. Legally and medically, there is no controversy surrounding the procedure itself. It appears to have been handled within standard care protocols. Financially, moments like this sustain the franchise's relevance. TLC has built a reputation on family-centered transformation narratives. Public interest in authentic struggle remains high, particularly when the stakes feel personal rather than sensational. Media analysts note that scenes of vulnerability, especially unfiltered emotional breakdowns, drive engagement metrics across platforms. But engagement is not the same as exploitation. The ethical question often raised is whether reality television provides adequate mental health support during filming. Networks typically employ safeguards, but details vary by production. There is no public evidence suggesting misconduct in this case. However, viewers frequently debate whether deeply emotional moments should be aired at all. Social media explosion. Within hours of the episode airing, social media platforms lit up. On X, formerly known as Twitter, hashtags related to the show trended regionally. Some users expressed sympathy for Tammy, citing the immense pressure of transformation and public scrutiny. Others were less forgiving, criticizing what they perceived as overreaction or immaturity. Comments ranged from supportive, "She's going through a lot, give her grace," to critical, "At some point, you have to take responsibility." Amy, meanwhile, received praise for taking proactive steps with her health. Mothers in particular voiced solidarity, emphasizing how difficult it can be to schedule medical procedures while caring for young children. Facebook discussion groups dedicated to the show debated whether the meltdown signaled deeper instability or simply a bad day magnified by cameras. TikTok reaction videos dissected body language, tone shifts, and editing choices. In today's media ecosystem, reality television is not confined to television. It becomes a participatory event. Every viewer becomes a commentator, and every emotional moment becomes communal property. What this means for the future. For the Slayton sisters, the future appears to hinge on adaptation. Amy's continued focus on health, both physical and parental, suggests a trajectory toward independence from the original weight loss narrative that launched the show. Tammy's post-surgery chapter is more uncertain. Significant weight loss can open doors, mobility, social opportunity, career potential, but it can also expose vulnerabilities previously buried under survival mode. Will Tammy continue to stabilize emotionally as her physical health improves? Will the sisters' dynamic recalibrate as their roles shift? From a production standpoint, TLC's investment in long-form character development indicates confidence in the franchise's staying power. Viewers are not just watching weight loss. They are watching identity reconstruction. And identity reconstruction is rarely smooth. Emotional human angle. Strip away the cameras. Remove the hashtags. What remains are two sisters from Kentucky trying to navigate change. Amy, balancing motherhood and medical anxiety, represents millions of American women who delay their own health needs while caring for others. Tammy, confronting her reflection in a rapidly changing body, represents anyone who has outgrown the version of themselves they once hid behind. Siblings share history in a way no one else can. They also share old wounds. When one evolves, it can unintentionally force the other to confront stagnation. That dynamic is universal. And perhaps that is why this episode resonated so deeply. Because beneath the surface, it wasn't about surgery or a restaurant. It was about growth and fear of being left behind, a strong call to action. If you followed the Slayton sisters' journey from the beginning, you know this story is still unfolding. What did you think about Amy's surgery decision? Was Tammy's restaurant meltdown understandable under the circumstances, or a sign of deeper unresolved issues? We want to hear your perspective. Join the conversation below. And if you value in-depth, balanced coverage that goes beyond headlines and into the human story, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't political or global. Sometimes they unfold at a family table in Kentucky. And we'll be here to cover every chapter. When cameras followed Amy Slayton into the medical facility for her eye procedure, the tone shifted from family drama to something quieter and more intimate. Medical settings have a way of stripping away bravado. Fluorescent lights, paperwork, surgical consent forms, they force reality into focus. While the series did not present the operation as experimental or unusually risky, any procedure involving vision carries psychological weight. Vision is independence. Vision is motherhood. Being able to see your children clearly, monitor their safety, drive them to appointments, read bedtime stories without strain. For Amy, whose life has already been shaped by major health milestones, this surgery represented more than medical correction. It represented stability. Viewers saw her express anxiety, not hysteria, not theatrics, but the quiet fear that many Americans feel before going under anesthesia. She spoke about her children. She spoke about wanting to heal properly. She leaned on family members for support. Medical professionals on the show appeared calm and procedural, explaining steps and recovery expectations. The edit emphasized preparation, not chaos. There were no emergency alarms, no dramatic complications presented in the episode. According to what aired, the procedure was completed successfully, and Amy began recovery under supervision. But emotionally, something else was happening beneath the surface. Amy has historically played the role of the moving forward sister, qualifying for weight loss surgery earlier, starting a family earlier, adapting to mobility changes more rapidly. In sibling dynamics, particularly those broadcast to millions, that role can create subtle imbalance. Progress, while admirable, can unintentionally create pressure for others. And that's where the emotional crosscurrent begins to form. Because while Amy was healing physically, Tammy was confronting something far less predictable. The restaurant incident. A closer look. In a separate sequence, cameras captured Tammy Slayton during what should have been a routine public outing to a restaurant. For most Americans, dining out is casual, a break from cooking, a social ritual. But for someone whose life has been publicly tied to food addiction, weight struggles, and dietary accountability, restaurants can become psychological battlegrounds. Observers of the episode noted an escalation that began subtly. Tammy appeared visibly tense before the confrontation peaked. Her body language suggested discomfort, crossed arms, clipped responses, defensiveness. The dialogue, as aired, centered around decision-making and perceived criticism. It is important to state clearly, the show's edit did not depict physical altercation or harm to staff. There was no confirmed report of law enforcement involvement or removal from the establishment. What viewers saw was emotional overwhelm, a raised voice, frustration, and what many described online as a meltdown. But meltdowns rarely emerge from a single moment. They are cumulative. Tammy has undergone one of the most dramatic physical transformations in reality television in recent years. After losing a significant amount of weight and qualifying for bariatric surgery, a goal that once seemed distant, she has had to recalibrate her identity in real time. Clinical experts often note that rapid physical change can trigger emotional disequilibrium. When someone's body changes faster than their internal coping systems adapt, stress responses intensify. Add cameras, public scrutiny, and the pressure of being seen as a success story, and the emotional load compounds. During the restaurant scene, Tammy appeared to feel judged, whether by family, by viewers, or by her own internal expectations. The show's narrative framing juxtaposed Amy's medical progress with Tammy's emotional volatility, creating a storyline contrast that was difficult to ignore. One sister in a hospital bed, healing. The other in a booth, unraveling family dynamics under pressure. To fully understand the tension, we need to revisit the Slayton family dynamic that has anchored 1,000 Pounds Sisters since its premiere. The sisters' relationship has always been symbiotic, supportive yet combative, humorous yet cutting. In earlier seasons, Amy often functioned as Tammy's primary caregiver, assisting with daily tasks and mobility limitations. That caregiving role created both closeness and resentment. When Tammy's health deteriorated in past seasons, family members expressed fear that they might lose her. There were documented hospitalizations and rehabilitation stays. There were moments when the show openly questioned whether Tammy would survive without drastic change. Then change came. And with it, a shift in power dynamics. Tammy's increased independence, physically walking longer distances, socializing more actively, has altered the family structure. But independence can also bring isolation. When you're no longer the one being physically cared for, you must emotionally self-regulate in ways you may not have practiced before. Amy, meanwhile, has been navigating her own upheaval, including marital challenges and the demands of raising two young children. While the episode focused on her surgery, broader season narratives have shown her experiencing stress related to parenting and personal growth. When siblings grow at different paces, friction is almost inevitable. And reality television amplifies that friction. Media ethics and reality TV pressure. Programs like 1,000 Pounds Sisters operate in a delicate space between documentation and storytelling. Producers craft episodes with narrative arcs, conflict, resolution, cliffhanger. That structure sustains viewership. But when emotional breakdowns occur on camera, audiences often ask whether vulnerability is being protected or packaged. There is no public evidence suggesting that Tammy was denied support or placed in danger during filming. Reality productions typically include mental health resources, though specific arrangements are not always disclosed. However, media scholars frequently debate whether ongoing filming during highly emotional moments intensifies distress. Being watched while overwhelmed can create a feedback loop, heightened emotion feeding heightened attention. For Tammy, who has spoken in past episodes about struggling with self-esteem and public judgment, The awareness of being filmed in a restaurant full of strangers could reasonably amplify anxiety. And yet, authenticity is part of what draws audiences to this franchise. Viewers are not tuning in for polished perfection. They are tuning in for real struggle. The line between authentic storytelling and emotional exposure is thin. Social media, divided but engaged. As clips circulated online, reactions reflected a divided but deeply engaged audience. Some viewers framed Tammy's meltdown as understandable given the immense life transition she has undergone. Others expressed frustration, arguing that progress should come with accountability. Several trending posts emphasized empathy, noting that food-centered environments can trigger anxiety for individuals recovering from disordered eating patterns. Supporters of Amy applauded her for prioritizing her health, especially as a mother. Posts highlighted the symbolic importance of vision, the idea of seeing clearly as she raises her children. Commentators across platforms debated whether the episode's editing intensified the perceived drama. Without access to unedited footage, viewers are left interpreting fragments. And interpretation fuels conversation. Conversation fuels ratings. Ratings fuel renewal. Long-term implications for the show. The franchise has evolved from a weight loss journey into a broader family chronicle. If earlier seasons centered on whether the sisters would survive physically, recent episodes ask whether they will thrive emotionally. Amy's eye surgery may seem minor compared to bariatric procedures, but narratively it reinforces her forward momentum. Incremental self-care steps layered on top of prior transformation. Tammy's restaurant meltdown introduces uncertainty into her post-surgery arc. The public often romanticizes transformation, expecting immediate confidence and happiness once weight is lost. But psychological adaptation lags behind physical change. If future episodes explore Tammy seeking counseling, setting boundaries, or redefining her social comfort zones, the meltdown could become a pivot point rather than a regression. If not, it may signal deeper instability that producers will need to navigate carefully. For TLC, the stakes are both human and commercial. The network has built a brand around emotionally intimate family storytelling. Maintaining viewer trust requires balancing drama with dignity. The human story beneath the headlines. Strip away episode titles and social media debates, and what remains is this. A mother went to surgery hoping to improve her sight. A sister felt overwhelmed in a public place, tied to years of struggle. These are not superhuman celebrities detached from reality. They are women from Kentucky whose lives changed because cameras arrived. Many Americans understand medical anxiety. Many understand sibling rivalry. Many understand what it feels like to grow at a different pace than someone you love. The reason this episode struck a nerve is because it mirrored everyday fears. Fear of change, fear of judgment, fear of losing connection as life evolves. Amy's recovery represents physical clarity. Tammy's meltdown represents emotional turbulence. Both are real. Both are human. In our next segment, we will examine how rapid transformation can psychologically destabilize identity, explore what clinical experts say about post-bariatric emotional adjustment, and analyze whether this episode marks a turning point in the Slayton sisters' relationship or simply another chapter in an ongoing, complicated bond. Stay with us. When viewers first met Tammy Slayton on 1,000 Pounds Sisters, her physical limitations were front and center. Mobility challenges, oxygen support, dependency on family. Those elements shaped not only her daily life but her public identity. For years, her struggle to qualify for bariatric surgery became the central tension of the show. Would she meet the medical benchmarks? Would she survive long enough to change? Eventually, after documented time in a rehabilitation facility and medically supervised weight loss, Tammy underwent bariatric surgery. That milestone was portrayed as a breakthrough, a hard-earned victory after seasons of resistance and setbacks. But what happens after the applause fades? Clinical research on post-bariatric patients in the United States has consistently shown that while physical health often improves dramatically, emotional adjustment can be complex. Rapid weight loss alters body image, social treatment, mobility, and independence almost simultaneously. Individuals who once navigated the world with visible physical barriers suddenly find those barriers reduced. That shift can be liberating, but also destabilizing. Identity is not just how we look. It's how we've learned to survive. For Tammy, whose self-image for years was intertwined with being the larger, more medically fragile sister, transformation may carry unexpected grief. Grief for the coping mechanisms she relied on. Grief for the version of herself that, despite hardship, was familiar. Experts often refer to this phenomenon as identity lag. The body changes first. The mind catches up later. When Tammy appeared overwhelmed in that restaurant, some viewers interpreted it as regression. Others saw it as a symptom of this psychological recalibration. Being in a public dining space, a setting historically linked to her most visible struggle, may have intensified internal conflict. Eating in moderation after years of extreme restriction and excess is not merely a nutritional adjustment. It is a rewiring of habit, emotion, and reward systems. And when that rewiring happens under national scrutiny, the stakes feel even higher. Amy's quiet transformation, health beyond weight loss. While Tammy's emotional turbulence played out publicly, Amy Slayton was navigating a different, quieter evolution. Amy's decision to pursue eye surgery may not have carried the dramatic narrative weight of bariatric transformation, but it signaled something equally important: long-term maintenance. Early seasons of the show positioned Amy as determined but